Hey, Alan,
Yes.
how did you feel when she went to her closing argument and handed you that huge packet of case law and then started, talking about case law?
Well, we had spoken about adding some case law into my declaration, but not quoting it, just putting aspects of the case law in so he knew, we were referring back to some case law, and we had spoke about not doing just straight up reading any case law because it would offend the judicial officer. And when she pulled that stack of papers out and handed them to me, and I started skimming through them while she was getting ready to read them, my heart, we're on the second floor of the in the courthouse, and my heart went to the basement. I thought everything was kind of good until then, and she was gonna pull out this case law, and that was gonna be the end of it, and he was gonna make a decision right then and throw it all out. I thought she might have found a way in the case law to actually prove something, and it just, my heart sank.
Now, I'm actually going to teach a little bit of a law lesson because this is kind of a law call. And after that, we'll open it up. Alsa's still on. If he has a question, we'll open it up in just a minute. So I'm actually going to read some case law because I read a lot of case law, especially when I'm helping somebody. It helps a lot with the declaration. I'll just kind of give an example here in just a second. So here's what it says. The court can set aside an agreement if the court determines that it is unconscionable. However, a conclusion that the agreement is unconscionable requires the court to find both procedural unconscionability and substantive unconscionability. And this is what's really important because the only thing that I ever look for is the substantive part. And that is because the substantive part is the actual substance of the law. If somebody has done something that is substantively unconscionable, then there is some type of procedural unconscionability that goes along with it. If somebody violates your substantive rights, then they have violated your statutory rights or your declarated rights out of the Constitution, whatever you wish to call it. And I'm not saying that your rights come from a Constitution or a statute. What I'm saying is that they have substance to them. And if the substance of your rights are violated, somebody wrote it down somewhere at some point in time that it's not right and it's illegal in some kind of way. So we go down to what substantive unconscionability means. The terms of the contract are harsh, oppressive, and one-sided. Inequality of the bargain must be so manifest as to shock the judgment of a person of common sense, and the terms so oppressive that no reasonable person would make them on one hand, and no honest and fair person would accept them on the other. And so these are the types of things that they really can't go against because there's a difference between case law and common law case law. And common law case law is built on not natural justice, equity, or on local customs. That's the only way common law case law is created. And even in their administrative courts, they still have common law case law if you know how to find it. So here is Alan's declaration. I'm just going to go over the points for everybody. Postnuptial agreement and separation agreement are governed by conscience and substantive in nature. Right there, he's telling them. Any logical and rational man or woman may choose to enter such contract. Said contracts are made with intent to be fair and honest. Real property, land protected by said contracts is in trust to I by my family, which I am heir to. If real property lose protection, it will cause future litigation as right-of-way is private family land. So you're telling the court, like, if you throw this out, you're going to have to deal with the consequences because people are going to be back in here. It's going to be an issue because there's no right-of-way. And you can't force somebody to sell property. And you can't force somebody to create a right-of-way. I believe Tamara Act vexatiously in law with motions and litigation, which she never objected to. She never said, no, I don't, which makes it a fact. I pray and wish judiciary uphold law and not interfere with obligation, duty, or protection of private contracts. I do not consent to any action that may jeopardize the safety, privacy, and peace of the Smith family land and property. And I know that Alan's a little worried because he hasn't gotten the piece of paper from the court, but in my mind, there's absolutely no way that that the judicial officer in this case is not going to follow the law, because kind of at the end, and this is after the opposing attorney was reading all of the case law, and everything that she talked about from the case law only had to do with the procedural unconscionability. And she pretty much named everything and went through every element of all of that stuff. It hurt my head. I had to go to the bathroom. And
and I was trying to take notes while she was just straight up as fast as she could read all of these different, what was it, 5 or 6 different sets of case law she was going through. And what stuck out in my mind most was the fraud part. So after she got done, the judicial officer said, I normally don't do this, but do you have, one more time, do you have anything that you would like to add? So I brought up the separation agreement again that she had, that had the 2 pages that, I showed him and her previously that weren't there, that just manifested. And I said that. I said, so those 2 pages that were just manifested that only you have. And then, of course, I reiterated about the debt not being equity. But it was almost like, she was reading this case law like she was trying to use it in her case, but then they had stuff that seemed fraudulent that they were trying to use and bring against me.
That actually brings something back up to mind, because when she was actually making her closing argument, she all but basically said that her client didn't even have the documents or the contract when all of this was going on.
Well, earlier she had asked me and my ex, how many copies were done? How many copies did you receive? How many copies did he receive? How many copies were signed and notarized? And she answered all of her questions. She asked her if we prepared it together. She asked how long it took to prepare the document together. And then at the end, John, you're right. She was like, well, she don't really have anything.
One of the reasons that I was about to say just a moment ago, one of the reasons why I really believe that this judicial officer is going to act 100% in law is obviously he was pretty irritated with the opposing attorney. You could really tell it. Anytime she objected to what was going on, he always overruled her every single time, like even before hearing her objection or what the foundation of her objection was. And at the very end, when Alan couldn't really think of anything else, he was like, is this a court that even handles contract law? And the judicial officer was about to get upset, but Oracle kind of looked at him and laughed and smiled. And then he just kind of quit being upset. And he was like, I know the law, son. Don't worry about that.
Yep.
That was the only thing I could think of. I was still freaked out from the case law. The only thing that popped into my mind was throwing more common law down. And that was the first thing that popped into my mind.
Well,
I asked if this court was equipped to handle private contracts.
Well, and when the attorney brought up case law, all I kept thinking of was she's going to bury herself. I mean, that's very insulting for the judge to hear that, because he already knows this. Like, who was she performing for, And I thought that it would make the judge very irritated with her. It's like when I'm working in my office and someone comes in and tells me how to do my job when I've had, 25 years experience of it. It's just kind of ridiculous. So I wasn't worried about that at all, absolutely at all. And when that last statement was made by Alan, I just looked at the judicial officer and smiled and kind of laughed, and he laughed also, and then others kind of laughed. And I think that was in essence, a good ending, and it turned out to be a good closing for what happened.
He read a lot of case law.
Yeah, but she didn't have anything that actually applied or would make a difference.
Right. Yeah.
And with that, I know Alice had his hand up earlier. If you have a question, you can put your hand up, or if anybody else wishes to ask something before we shut it down for the evening, now is the time.
I'm open for anything. If you want to go over any more points of it, I mean, it felt really good being able to, when we left, to get those questions laid down. And again, I just want to say, I mean, he was very attentive. He was very accommodating, and it kind of blew my mind when I started to examine or cross-examine my ex, and she did. Her attorney objected to every question I asked, and it was like the first time, John, we talked about it, it stumped me because I was like, wait a minute. And he had to tell me I could proceed because it threw me, because as soon as she said object, he said overruled. And I didn't know what to say. I was like, holy crap, that was quick. I was not expecting him to, and every time he just object, she say objection, overruled. As soon as she said it.
Was this law stuff that complicated? Like, was doing it for yourself way more complicated than you thought, or was it less complicated? I mean, is this law stuff so complicated that you should go get an attorney?
No. It's not so much that it's complicated. It's more along the lines of we've been taught a completely different way. We've been taught their way, and you're just trying to retrain your mind. But when you start learning it, it's not that complicated. Now, there's a lot more to it than just going in and saying and doing certain things.
Yeah, like you can't just go in there and say, I'm man and statutes don't apply to me, because statutes would say that I got status under the state and the state doesn't apply because I'm a man, and they're not going to throw that out, huh?
Right. I mean, you can't just go in there willy-nilly. You have to know. Mm-hmm. But it's not. And the attorneys, I have found out, firsthand now, the attorneys make it complicated so they can keep the cash cow going.
And you've also found out firsthand that they also can work behind your back sometimes, huh?
They are very good at that. They're all friends. They may act like they don't like each other, and then they're all going to go out and get in the same car and go eat lunch at recess.
Trading in the souls of man.
But this has definitely been a very eye-opening experience, something that I am fully behind this movement. This word has to get out and get back to what law used to be, real law, not their crap.
Well, and especially this kind of family stuff, like, the family is way too precious to allow the state to administrate it.
Because they don't know. That judicial officer don't know me or my ex or my children. Neither attorney that we had or all of, the attorneys don't know you or your family or how you are, or how you act around your family. And it's all I have learned, after witnessing the way they attacked my character yesterday, and even in the previous two hearings, I don't recall saying anything bad about my ex. It's all hearsay. They make their decisions, without a private contract like what we had. They're basically all making all of their decisions based on hearsay, because you're telling your attorney's telling the judicial officer, so it's second and third hand information that they're using to govern you and your family.
Or they're having somebody from the state come in, somebody who works
Right.
with DSS or CPS, and they're telling them hearsay that they heard from somebody else. So the game of telephone even gets a little longer.
I've always
No
said
matter how frivolous.
that, and I've had it from not only experience and my own experience, but what I've seen with other people, and that is, and if we just look at, the 8.5 years we've been going through, there are many things that Josephine, my mother, had really wanted to do, and she couldn't carry them out without the court, without her attorneys giving her the help and the assistance to put us in jail to continue to steal money and property from my father and throw him into poverty. So, I hold the courts even more guilty of continuing perpetrating and perpetuating these wars and fights and robbing of money and time and family, that they participate in this. And it's one thing if you have an idea that you want to do something that's pretty vindictive or evil to somebody, but to be able to use the courts and your attorney to carry that out, I find it even more horrific.
And other government agencies.
Yes, exactly.
They got to the point where they were calling CPS on me so much that they were having to get even more far-fetched with their accusation than the last time.
Mm-hmm.
It got to where even the people from CPS are like, when do you have court next? In a week. Oh, so that's why we're here. I mean, it got ridiculous with us, with me, what they were accusing me of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and until people really get together as a society and force things to change, it's just not going to change. And talking about that, we're going to be working on trying to get Valerie back up here again. I mean, Valerie. Because if we can't have her rights to swear out the warrant against James Sapp and Greg Newman, nobody's going to be able to stop the government from sticking a prick in you. That's just an awful idea. But I've thought about this way of kind of maybe trying to entice people or get people out, because by the end of this month, a lot of people are going to understand one of two things. They're either going to understand exactly how worthless they are to the system because the system's going to fire them or kick them out of their position or get rid of them because they won't go and get the jab. They feel that much against it, or they've already left because they see the writing on the wall and they know what their soul is worth. And while those people don't have no job, don't really have anything to do, I think we should start getting down at the courthouses and making sure that law gets upheld. Because if you're not willing to take the vaccination and you think that the government's going to force it at some point in time, where do you think those orders are going to come from? Like the orders to tell the people to go to your home and forcibly give you the vaccination, they're going to come out of the courthouse. And even if it doesn't get to that point, you can be pretty rest assured that they're going to write some type of legislation to make people who are not vaccinated more or less second-class citizens and have some type of punishment, coercive punishment to kind of get people to choose on their own to get vaccinated, maybe fines or jail time or something. And where do you think those orders are going to come from?
Right.
They're going to come from the courthouse, So if you wish to change all of this stuff, the place to change it is the courthouse.
I just want to thank everybody for listening to my story and all the help and advice I've got and opening my eyes and showing me what really needs to happen. I couldn't have done it without y'all.
Well, we'd like to thank you for participating, brother.
Absolutely.
I'm here for the
Greatly
long haul.
appreciated.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. But it's always good when you get a thank you.
But I mean, if it weren't for people like you and other people and the people who show up on the call, there wouldn't really be any place for us to do this stuff and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Move it forward. It's going to take all of us working with each other.
Yep. So thanks for sharing your story, Alan. Appreciate it.
I do too. I appreciate y'all. I know there's a lot that goes into this. I mean, I don't know how to thank y'all enough.
Well, I mean, I think just spread the word, brother.
Oh, I am.
Just keep it up. Let's just keep helping each other. Try and get more people involved. And do it for all of our offspring.
That right there is the only reason I fought this so hard. I've spent all of my savings that I ever had saved up. I've fought tooth and nail, even with my attorney. I fought with my own attorneys to keep this going, to do what was best for my offspring. And it's not about me. This other stuff is material, but they have to have somewhere to live. They have to have food on the table, and if they take it all from me, they essentially take it from them.
I do want to say before we close that my dad's been going through 8 years, 6 months of, what's happened to him, losing home, land, property, money. My mother divorcing him after 60 years married. He's a veteran, and, my dad's a real sweet guy, and today's his birthday. He's 91 years old. Bob is 91. So I'd appreciate if you all could say happy birthday to Bob either on the feed there or on the chat so I could send it to him. In 91 years, he's gone through a lot, but never more than he has in the last 8.5 years of being falsely arrested a few times. Too bad, John and Dad didn't share a cell together. John was in jail longer, and Dad certainly appreciates all the help and the prayers that you all have given to him and the support. John's did some really great videos on my dad and his story. You can find it on the YouTube channel, Just Conspiracy, as we're continually trying to move forward into restoring some things back to my dad so that he could enjoy his life, his latter years, and, get rid of some of the brokenheartedness, the trauma, and the financial loss that he's had. So I just want to say happy birthday, Dad. I love you. And I'm proud of you.
Happy birthday, Henry.
Yeah. So thank you all. Appreciate that.
Happy 91st, Baba.
Yeah. 91, that's huge. 91 years old. God, he's seen so much, and so much at his older age he's had to, have a broken heart to get healed and, loss of his kids turning against him. It's been really, really hard. So thanks for your comments. I love you too, Dottie. Thank you, Nika. Thanks, Monarch. Appreciate it. Thanks, Alan, and all those that wish my dad happy birthday. Say a prayer to him that all turns out well as we're moving forward. We're at critical mass right now. So, anyway, and thank you so much, John.
Well, thank you, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I put in lawless judicial officers into the chat with a YouTube link, and that is probably my favorite video for about Henry's case. It's really, really awesome. And Monarch put in a link to the Wise Words with JC and Friends, and also to YouTube's Just Conspiracy, if anybody wishes to check that out if you're listening to this audio later. And thank you, everybody, for coming out. And Dottie, I love you too. I'll talk to you soon. And thank you, Alan, for doing what you did. Alan, and what really happened and what's really going on in the audios and different things like that. When myself, Monarch, and Craig Lynch get this website up called Save the Slave and really running, that will probably be, I'm going to break down the entire thing that went on, what happened, why it happened that way, and what was going on. And it's going to be a teaching tool and seminar for people who wish to learn. And with that, we will be here. Thank you, Nika. It was good seeing you the other day. We're going to be here next week on Wednesday, October the 13th. So we'd love everybody coming out and participating. We'll probably talk more law next week. So thanks, everybody, for coming out. And if y'all wish to say good night, now's the time.
Thank y'all.
Everybody.
I hope you have a good night.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody else. Greatly appreciated. Keep coming back. Links are in the chat for the Telegram group, YouTube channels, all the good stuff. We'll be here next Wednesday.